then sharpening your arguments. No matter how much you virtue signal, harassing people isn't a talent. It's just lazy. And in the end, lazy is just boring, and it rarely wins. And that's the angle. All right, joining me now with reaction in Washington, David Arizad, and he's an expert in identity politics from the Heritage Foundation, and Democratic strategist Monique Pressley, plus Leo Dunson, minister and activist who took part in President Trump's Black History Month celebration last week. David, I want to start with you. You spent a lot of time studying identity politics and think the left has, I'm so sick of the phrase weaponized, but they're using race relations in a very pointed way, to say the least.
And of the examples you listed, the one that I found most disturbing was the Jussie Smollett one. Because had he pulled off his hoax, the consequences would have been dramatic for America. Setting aside that 2 innocent people may have gone to jail, you very well could have had race riots. After all, it's a hate crime. Kamala Harris says that this is a modern-day lynching. And this is post-BLM America. We all
Black
remember,
Lives Matter America.
Yes, we all remember what happened in Ferguson with Michael Brown. And so in order to advance his pathetic little career, he made this slanderous accusation that thankfully has been diffused, but could have exploded.
Monique, Spike Lee, I think, has an enormous amount of talent. I mean, I like kind of the old Spike Lee stuff. It's like funny. But the Oscars are just another example of, I think, Hollywood cutting off half of America. And immediately they're cast onto the ash heap of you're bad people because you like Trump or you're more conservative or you're not a liberal. And for the life of me, I don't get that. It's not entertaining. It's utterly predictable, and it's conformist. It's the opposite of nonconformist in Hollywood. A nonconformist would be someone who's like a conservative up there saying, I call BS on all of you.
Right. I don't recall him mentioning President Trump's name.
Oh, come on. You're smart, Monique.
I don't recall him
you don't think he was talking about
conservatives or liberals.
Okay.
I do recall everybody who was in the place screaming and clapping and hooping. I was jumping up and down, screaming and clapping and hooping at home, so I'm giving him entertainment value. There are people
That's a
who
representative audience?
Well, you know.
Really? Representative of whom?
I represent people like me, whatever that means.
Yeah.
He's had a 30-year career. He won an Oscar after those 30 years. He deserved it well before that. I think he gets to use his time whatever way he wants to use his time.
I'm not saying he does. He can do whatever he wants. We have the right to criticize it.
Yes, and so then I have the right to defend. So what I'm saying in defense is I found his statements accurate and poignant, and I was a little surprised, Laura, I got to admit, when you were talking about him lacking subtlety and
there was
grace.
That was the most predictable. I could have written that for him.
Subtlety and grace, and I think you also mentioned something about people who are coddled when they're youngsters showing up this way.
I wasn't talking about him. I talked about three other people in there.
You were talking about who? Donald J. Trump? The occupant of the White House?
Well, I was talking about a generation that believes that if someone disagrees with you, they're a bad person. I wouldn't say Spike Lee and I disagree on stuff. I wouldn't say he's a bad person. We disagree.
But
big
that's
deal.
Popular right now, isn't it? Because we,
how is that interesting?
I'm going to envelop it and say we as a country elected someone whom, if you do not agree with him, you're a bad person. There's no subtlety.
Who said that?
There's no grace. He says it.
He says I'm the president
time.
of all the people.
Boo you, bad, sad.
All right, Leo, you were just with him. Monique says that Donald Trump thinks you're a bad person if you don't agree with him. Now, you just were with him. It was oversubscribed, like 300-plus African-American leaders and activists around the country. A lot of people didn't see what happened, but a lot of people saw the Oscars. They had 29.6 million people watching that last night, and Monique is right. Everyone in that room, probably 90% Democrat, liberal Democrat, or the other ones are too afraid to say anything different. They all love it. Of course they love it. They're in Hollywood. What did you see about this president that might be a different take from what Monique just said?
Well, we know for a fact that Spike Lee was alluding to the president when he said love versus hate, because he said in 2020 we're going to make sure you go out and vote for love versus hate. But I like to say if the Democrats represent 90% of black communities right now, we're in poverty, we're being shot, we're being poorly miseducated. Is that love or is that hate? I don't understand how under this president he has dropped black unemployment to the lowest that it's ever been. Our poverty rate has been under this president is lower than it's ever been. Still above the national average, but lower than it's ever been. I don't understand the illusion that Spike Lee and many of these other liberals continue to make when they say that the president is spewing hate or is spewing love. I see it from the other side. If a black conservative has stood in front of a room of all white people and did the exact same thing that Spike Lee did, they would have said that I was chucking and jiving and that I was cooning. But because he's part of the liberal elite, he's able to stand up there in the front of the entire world and get multiple claps and ask questions. Even afterwards, he asks questions in front of a smug room of people who are all rich and famous, and makes it seem like he understands black America or the plight of the people.
Let's go to what Stacey Abrams wrote. She's like writing that this is actually working for Democrats, and I think we should take this to heart. She wrote in Foreign Affairs, Americans must thoughtfully pursue an expanded identity-conscious politics. New, vibrant, noisy voices represent the strongest tool to manage the growing pains of multicultural coexistence. By embracing identity in its prickly, uncomfortable contours, Americans will become more likely to grow as one.
The truth of the matter is the exact opposite.
Why?
By nature, we're tribal animals. We go with our own. It's not natural for human beings to get along with people who don't look like us, don't worship the same God.
What does that mean?
Meaning, we prefer to be with our own. We're distrustful of people who look different, who talk different, who worship differently. What we should emphasize is not identity, is unity, is civic friendship,
That's right.
is brotherhood, that we're all Americans. And you know what? The diversity part will take care of itself naturally. Don't emphasize the divisiveness. Emphasize unity.
What brings us together?
Americans.
I 100% agree with you, David.
Monique, your reaction to that? I mean, there is something about, people say Trump's dividing us. But gosh, it seems like there are a lot of people dividing America right now,
and
along gender, racial, what's your preference here? I'm just trying to get through the day, frankly. Whatever, I'm just trying to get through the day.
You and me both, and raise my kids while I do it. So I don't completely disagree. Here's what I think. Identity politics really can save us as much as people think it can divide us, because me recognizing that you are different than me and I identify with someone who looks like me is not the same thing as saying I hate what is different from me. So there doesn't have to be the divisiveness. We don't have to embrace that in order to embrace the fact that there's something good about me and the skin that I'm in.
I agree.
I like it, right? I like the skin that you're in.
Yeah.
So when we're talking about identity politics, I think the message can't be silos that don't talk to each other.
Right.
It can be silos. You've got yours, I've got mine, but what do we have in common?
Well, I agree with you. I think there's actually something we can agree on. I know that's like no one wants to say that in cable news, but I actually think, Leo, there is something we can agree on. I can never understand what it's like to be an African-American woman. I can't understand. I can't put my shoes in someone else. I don't look down on people because of skin colors. I really don't. We might disagree on things. That's okay. What I don't like is when people say, because you're not that, you have privilege and you need to apologize. I'm like, what the heck? I didn't do anything. Like, that's what I think is getting in people's craw, getting in their craw. They don't like that aspect of it. The differences and coming together, I think that's all positive. Leo, close it out.
Right, and also with identity politics, right, you have, for example, Black Lives Matter, who will march when a black boy is shot by a white police officer, but who won't march when black kids are being shot every single day. Identity politics also goes into the feminist movement, where they will run for they'll march for gay marriage, they'll march for anything feminine, but they won't march for a masculine movement, right? They will be completely against that for sure, right? They will identity politics continue to divide us, and I don't think that is something that we should be doing. I think that we should all be Americans. We're American first. We should be talking about the policies that better affect us together as Americans living here in America.
The content of our character. It's great conversation.
Amen.
Thank you so much. And coming up, defending the first against radical people on the left, trying to alter the past and the present.